Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. The meeting is called to order. I kindly ask our city clerk to please take the roll call.
Mike Bruno.
Here.
Tara Burkhart.
Here.
Don Cummings. Here. Becky Ruby.
Here.
Dean Kilberg.
Here.
Craig Malodger's out. Richard Marks.
Here.
Gene McGowan.
Here.
Jim Radecki.
Here.
Robert Swanson.
Here.
We begin tonight's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to invite our Fire Chief, Mike Antonori, to please lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. Item 4, ladies and gentlemen, amendments to the agenda. Are there any amendments this evening by the council? Item 5 is the omnibus agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are considered to be routine by this council and can be considered in one motion. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Marks. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Cummings. Any questions or comments regarding the omnibus agenda? Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mike Bruno.
Aye.
Tara Burkhart.
Aye.
Don Cummings.
Aye.
Becky Ruby.
Aye.
Dean Kilberg.
Aye.
Richard Marks.
Aye.
Gene McGowan.
Aye.
Jim Radecki.
Aye.
Robert Swanson.
Aye.
The omnibus agenda passes with 9 affirmative votes, no nay votes, and 1 absent. We move down to item number 9A, recommend authorization of change order number 1 to the contract with AMS Mechanical in the amount of $6,424 for the wastewater plant primary pump and valve replacement.
So moved.
Alderman Marks makes the motion,
Second.
seconded by Alderman Ruby. We have Mr. Van Gescam with us this evening. Are there any questions for Bob? Seeing none, hearing none. Roll call vote would be in order. Mr. Clerk?
Mike Bruno.
Aye.
Tara Burkhart.
Aye.
Don Cummings.
Aye.
Becky Ruby.
Aye.
Dean Kilberg.
Aye.
Richard Marks.
Aye.
Gene McGowan.
Aye.
Jim Radecki.
Aye.
Robert Swanson.
Aye.
Item 9A passes with 9 affirmative votes, no nay votes, and 1 absent. Item 10, municipal bills for payment. We kindly ask our clerk to read the bills in their aggregate for our consideration.
Bills for payment, $917,141.94 and $3,304,071.72.
Mayor, I move that we approve and pay the bills as read. The individual items that add up to that amount can be found in tonight's packet on the city website.
Motion to pay the bills as presented and available on our website and in our packets is offered by Alderman Bruno. Is there a second? Second. Alderman Burkhart makes the second. Questions or comments regarding the bills? Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mike Bruno.
Aye.
Tara Burkhart.
Aye.
Don Cummings.
Aye.
Becky Ruby.
Aye.
Dean Kilberg.
Aye.
Richard Marks.
Aye.
Gene McGowan.
Aye.
Jim Radecki.
Aye.
Robert Swanson.
Aye.
The motion passes with 9 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 1 absent. We move down to Committee of the Whole items of business. Item 11A is to approve certificate of completion for the Stanton subdivision at 1708 Caneville Road.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Marks.
Second.
It's a tough one. Second by Alderman Kilberg. Questions or comments regarding this matter? Mr. Clerk, a roll call vote, please.
Robert Swanson.
Aye.
Jim Radecki.
Aye.
Gene McGowan.
Nay.
Richard Marks.
Aye.
Dean Kilberg.
Aye.
Becky Ruby.
Aye.
Donald Cummings.
Aye.
Tara Burkhart.
Nay.
Mike Bruno.
Aye.
Mr. Clerk, am I correct? The vote is 7 affirmative votes, 2 nay votes, and 1 absent.
Correct.
Motion passes. Folks, we're skipping down to item 13, new business. We'll defer to those who are joining us this evening. Anyone from the audience, any new business for the council? Questions, comments? From the dais, Alderman Kilberg.
Over the last few days, I've had an inquiry as it relates to snow plowing routine, and maybe for the benefit of the community, it might be good if Mr. Babick might just sort of explain how we sequence the streets in the community just a short overview, just to explain the strategy and the approach that the community takes. I think the city did a nice job. This was sort of a challenging storm here. Accumulation was what, 5 or 6 inches over the last 36 hours, and I just think that it's good sometimes to provide the community with a refresher on how this process works or plays out.
Director Babica, would you be available just to provide a 30,000-foot or 6-inch perspective?
The official snowfall total for the last 36 hours was 4.6 inches. So it adds up to about 36 hours of overtime plus a lot of wear and tear on equipment and salt. But the city of Geneva is under contract with the state of Illinois to operate and maintain several state highways within the city limits, including Route 25, Route 31, and Route 38. These routes, as well as many other roadways within the community, and they're all listed on the city's webpage. If you go within the Public Works section, Street Division, Snow, excuse me, all these main routes are listed. The main routes basically are identified through average daily traffic flow, ADT, and they are the heaviest traveled streets within the community. It would also probably be relevant to point out that several roads within the city limits, such as Randall Road and Peck Road and Kesslinger, are actually county roads. They're owned and operated and maintained by KDOT, so we do not expend city resources on those. But those arterial roads are known as snow routes, and they are divided up amongst the on-call crew, the first crew that goes out, which is typically 6 drivers. And those drivers are tasked with maintaining those routes. During a 1 to 2 inch event, what we're probably going to do is go out there and fully treat those snow routes, and then we'll go in and out of the side streets and cul-de-sacs and apply salt and abrasives at the curves, hills, and intersections, and down the center median. Also, just so you're aware, the school zones are also included in these snow routes. So these 6 schools within the community, yeah. I had to think about that one for a minute. The 6 schools within the community are also included in these snow routes. So, as well as the police plaza, for example, is a snow route. It's one of the snow routes, not because of traffic volume, but to make sure that the first responders can get it out where they need to be. So these routes are typically done almost irregardless of what the weather conditions are. If we're called out by the police department or weather conditions warrant, those areas are going to get treated and taken care of. And then we have an escalating policy. Basically, as more snowfall comes in, or if conditions warrant, we can start adding drivers up to the mix. And it becomes a challenge where, for example, this event that went through for 36 hours, we go into what's 12 on, 12 off. Excuse me. I'm recovering from the flu, so if I get sick tomorrow, it's on you. But when we're on the 12 on and 12 off, what we're basically trying to do is make sure that we have enough drivers to operate as a reserve. Once we've committed all the street employees to snow operations, we then start pulling employees out of the wastewater utility. And that is what we commonly refer to as the shuffle. And what they do is they are tasked with clearing all the side streets as well as the cul-de-sacs. And within the community is then divided into 5 zones of residential streets, which include everything else outside of the snow routes. So the primary drivers are going to be staying on their snow routes, making sure that people can actually get through town. And the idea, again, the concept is that we're keeping the main routes open for first responders, police and fire, to get where they need to go and as fast and safe as possible. The shuffle crew then starts working their way through the side streets, and that includes doing the cul-de-sacs. Typically, at a very high level, and unfortunately I could probably talk about this till midnight and Kevin would be upset with me about that. The order goes snow routes, then the side streets, and then cul-de-sacs, and then the alleys. So the alleys specifically like Geneva East, with the alleys out there, the alleys through the old parts of, the established neighborhoods around City Hall where we have alleys. Those are gonna get done last. Cul-de-sacs are done typically just before the alleys, and as the snow routes are either been curbed and the event has stopped, and now those drivers become available, we will then retest them into the side streets because we have smaller trucks in the side streets, and those smaller trucks then get tasked to the cul-de-sacs. So even though we have trucks in the cul-de-sacs and the alleys throughout the event, basically as the larger equipment gets freed up, we keep them in the side streets because they're not as maneuverable in the cul-de-sacs. And we basically start pushing more and more resources down. And as routes get completed, then they check in with the supervisor, whoever that is, that's on running the show that day. And then they will start condensing those into the other cul-de-sacs. So we're basically just constantly just throwing more and more assets, whatever's working on that crew, until all the streets are done. Once all the streets have been completed, then everybody goes home. So if you're on a main route, say your route is, we're on Route 31 and Route 38, and you're done, you don't get to go home. You are going to keep working until everybody is ready to go home. The snow routes are available on the city's webpage. Myself and the street superintendent, we have actually what's called a snow guideline, which is a 26-page document. It's a planning document that we review. Basically, we start reviewing that right after Swedish Days. And then in the month of October, we have a department meeting where all the drivers are brought back up and refreshed on the snow operating guidelines. And then as part of their spin-up training, we go through equipment training and reorientation. But that document is, we talked about putting it on the city's webpage, on the link to the department. But with the conversion that we recently just went through with the city's webpage, it just hasn't happened yet. We just haven't had the resources to get that on there.
Good. You know, I think that's, you accomplished what I hoped. You gave a nice overview of the fact that there's a lot of strategy and a lot of preparation and planning that goes into snow removal, and that it's really predicated on priority and traffic. No, I think that was excellent.
Thank you, sir.
You might comment on just the brine strategy as it relates to prepping some of these streets and how that's working, if that's something we're going to continue. And then how our equipment is as it relates to the current season. I know that we had some equipment that was a concern. And how's that shaping up?
Well, the current equipment status is about 15% of the fleet's out of service. The rather lengthy event, the 36 hours of continuous operation, really is a worst case scenario for both my operators as well as the equipment. Things get beaten up, hoses fail, engines start having issues. The fleet manager and the two fleet technicians have been working steadily through them. And we're going through a triage system. So those that have the least issues are getting treated first in an effort to get them back into the system. In one sense, we're kind of lucky that the weather forecast is the mid-50s for this weekend. So we have a little bit of a breather. We're not in a crisis mode. We're definitely in a concern mode, though. So that is something that it was actually the first question I asked the superintendent when I saw him this morning is, how's the fleet? My next question was, do we have any accidents? So that's always that's the first concern is, I know we have enough, I shouldn't say we have enough salt, but we're good on salt for now. But the concern is definitely the status of the fleet. In regards to the brine, what Alderman Kilberg is referring to is anti-icing. And anti-icing is becoming a fairly standard practice now amongst the snow removal operations. And what we're doing is we're putting down salt brine before a snowstorm event. It's a 26% salt solution, salt water. And the idea is that these ribbons are put down in the pavement, and as the water within the salt brine evaporates, the salt residual stays on the pavement. And when the first flush of snow comes down, be it rain or freezing rain or snow, the salt brine reconstitutes and prevents the material, whatever it may be, freezing rain, snow, slush, from bonding with the pavement. And where that's key is it makes it far easier for us then to come through with our blades and peel the snow off, as opposed to having frozen precipitation on the ground, which then we have to apply chemical abrasives to break that bond, and it takes a lot longer. The advantage of the salt brine is that it's much more efficient at preventing that bond from creating, rather than us having to apply more and more salt, so it's more environmentally friendly. But there is a very specific range of parameters on when we can put that material down. For those of you who remember computer programming, there's a flow chart with the diamonds and the circles and the ovals. It's literally that type of a chart where what's the forecast for precipitation, what's the dew point, what's the humidity, what's the road temperature conditions. And if you go through here and check all the boxes, then it's appropriate to do the anti-icing. And if it's not, we don't put it down because we actually don't want to create a slippery condition or create a freezing situation for any of us to have more work.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate
My pleasure.
the overview and again, congratulations to your crew. I know that we're well into it now, and hopefully we won't have a lot more snow to deal with. I'm afraid we will.
Any additional comments or questions for the director? Alderman Ruby?
Rich, can you please share with everybody the brine? It was made by an employee, came up with how to make it? Is that correct? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, it was an initiative of one of the street department employees, Dave Levine, and it started out as a pilot program 2 years ago. And we didn't want to make an investment into either purchasing the material, because when you have the salt brine solution in tanks, after a certain threshold, you have to have a number of EPA regulations and IEPA regulations you have to adhere to for secondary containment and a bunch of other issues. So you only want to have the material you need when you need it. So what Dave was able to do was basically through YouTube and site visits. Some of it was on his own initiative, and as we basically saw how excited he was, we kind of gave him the wholehearted support. And through site visits to other agencies, he was able to create his own homemade, homebrew salt brining operation. And it was quite, it almost became a scavenger hunt. They were able to secure the tanks for making it and storing it, the pumps, all the employees basically contributed at one point in time to the operation. But the key choke point that we have with our homebrew system is that we can only treat enough or make enough material to treat about a third of the town in an 8-hour shift. So we've actually been getting calls from residents about, hey, why didn't my street get treated? You know, who lives over there, or why is that? And so last year in the budget cycle, in the capital budget, we actually requested a professional, or I would say a professional, but a industrial machine that could keep us supplied with the material. Unfortunately, the budgetary constraints, it was not funded. But Dave was actually awarded the Above and Beyond award for that for that initiative.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Hats off to staff for the initiative and ingenuity. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Babica.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else from the dais? Anyone else from the audience? Because I've got one item. I'm going to invite Mr. Collins, our IT manager, to join us. All of you have on the dais here copies of materials that have been put together by a select team of professional staff regarding the March sales tax referendum. These are educational pieces. As all of you know, and as all of those in the audience know, and the off chance those tuning in don't know, the City of Geneva can prepare materials with city resources to educate citizens and others regarding the referendum, but we cannot advocate a partisan position on the referendum. So these materials are simply to provide facts and figures regarding the ballot question in March. In addition to these documents, we have prepared a video for your enjoyment. Obviously, all of you would have access to this video. Anyone wishing to spread the word or host meetings to convey what this issue is all about can have access to the video as well. So with kudos to Pete, Pete Collins, Chris Rainey, Kathleen Tomashenko, Rita Cruz, and Stephanie Dawkins,
Kevin Starr, too.
and Kevin Starr, we present to you a, minute and 40-second video to capture
Just shy of 2, yeah, just shy of 2.
the issue in March. So,
And all the department heads that
Correct,
pointed up
of course.
pictures, too, as well. There you go.
Geneva has unique shopping and dining experiences, historic charm, welcoming festivals, a diverse recreational and cultural arts scene, and is a great place to live and work. All of these attributes depend on city services paid by tax revenues. Property tax is one source, but only 8% of a resident's tax bill is distributed back to the city. To put that figure in perspective, revenue collections from property tax are equivalent only to the operating cost of Geneva's fire department. Adding to the issue, shared income tax funding has been depleted by the state of Illinois. Sales tax is the city's largest revenue source, with a majority of this money generated by thousands of people who love visiting Geneva. Geneva became what it is today through innovation, investment, and smart growth. But even with cuts and responsible spending, the cost of providing city services has outpaced revenues. As a result, initiatives have been sidelined, while investments in Geneva's roads, sidewalks, vehicles, and underground infrastructure have been deferred. New funding is needed to sustain and resume critical projects that keep Geneva as the premier destination. On March 20th, voters will decide if the non-home rule sales tax rate in Geneva should be 1%, an increase of 0.5%, keeping Geneva competitive with neighboring communities. If approved, every $50 spent will mean an extra 25 cents in tax paid. You can find more information at www.geneva.il.us. Think about it, talk about it, and make sure to vote on March 20th.
comments? I wouldn't take any comments, said the city attorney. If anyone has any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, you can certainly forward them to me. You can forward them to Pete. We'll work together on this. But I'm confident that crystallizes what's also captured in the frequently asked questions document, and of course in this brochure as well.
Will this play on the city's network? Is there a schedule? When will that start playing, do you think?
I think we were going to put it on the website, or on YouTube tomorrow for everybody else.
Correct.
But we'll start cycling in the TV in the rotation between programming and stuff like that. We'll just drop
That
it.
may not be till, what, February, or you think earlier?
Tomorrow.
Right away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. As soon as, you know, it's already converted and ready to go, so we can move
How many,
it out.
no, how many times a day do you think he'll run that then? Half a dozen? Good question, huh?
I could run it as many times as wanted, I suppose.
It's great bumper material, I mean, no
Yeah,
question.
and that's typically how we use it. It'll come out of other programming and roll right into this or before,
Okay.
so.
Thanks, Pete.
Sure. All good?
Yes, sir. Alderman Kilby, could I ask you to turn?
Sure.
There you go.
With the property tax allocations, I'm assuming pensions were sort of rolled into whatever,
That's correct.
it was rolled into whatever governmental unit it was. So I know that it'd get a little overdone if you had all those other breakouts in there as well, so,
Right,
thanks.
certainly. We've reached the conclusion, I believe, of the meeting, unless there's anyone in the, yes, Nancy, welcome. Come on up.
My name is Nancy Lighton. Good evening. Could you just explain how, my ignorance, but I'm not exactly sure how that's gonna be, it's just gonna go on YouTube?
No.
Or
In
it's
terms of
on,
the communication to the residents and others?
yes, please. If you could just explain that, I can sit down, but,
You may recall that our friends from the Geneva Chamber of Commerce are going to be sharing this information with members and others.
yes,
We have a commitment from what is called the Geneva Food and Beverage Association to also share this information
That's
with
us,
others. I believe the city council will be, if not already talking about, perhaps committing to ward meetings, et cetera. We'll be visiting social service clubs, civic associations, you name it. Any opportunity we have to talk about this referendum in a
Okay.
nonpartisan way from a city's perspective, we will do
course.
so, absolutely.
and what, should I contact you, later this week, about our involvement and how we can help? And I've talked to the chamber a little bit, but we should be in closer contact again now that it's getting a little closer to the time.
Oh, absolutely, by
Would
all
I,
means.
would that be the best way?
Sure, no problem at all.
Okay,
I know that Michael Olson has served as point person to date with respect to the, not only his role at the chamber board, but also his role as a member of the FBA.
okay,
So,
okay, thank
but
you.
yeah, by all means, we're all, I think it's fair to say we're all accessible and available to answer any questions, provide whatever support we can.
Yeah, and then what we need to
You
help
got it.
the best way. Okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. This young guy came in late. You got a question or comment for us? No? Oh, awesome, man. Should we just keep the meeting going just for the heck of it? Is there-
Yeah, let's just do it again.
Let's just do it again. Without objection, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Alderman Marks makes the motion.
Second.
Alderman Bruno makes the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.